We need a new City Hall, everybody, just so, in case you didn't know. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I have with me today City Council member Raul Campillo. He represents the 7th Council District, and as well as the chair of the Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. Fire Chief Colin Stoll, our San Diego Police Chief Dave Nislight, Police Captain over our Neighborhood Policing Division Sean Takeuchi, and Sarah Jarman, who is the Director of the city's Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department. Today, I want to start by highlighting progress that we are making on an issue of statewide significance that I certainly believe that we don't talk enough about, that being mental health. As the people in this room know, the city does not have direct jurisdiction or control over healthcare, including behavioral health care programs or funding. That is the responsibility of our state and county governments. But certainly, cities like ours are on the front lines of our mental health crisis, particularly when it comes to dealing with their impacts. I'm referring specifically to the strain that our inadequate behavioral health systems place on our first responders, as well as the layer of difficulty that inadequacy adds to our efforts to address homelessness. By and large, mental health issues are treatable. Even the most severe cases can be treated, and folks who suffer from that can function at a very high level when they have access to quality care and to treatment. Unfortunately, what we know is that too many Californians lack access to the care that they need. Nowhere is this more apparent than the people living unsheltered on our state streets. While the crux of our homelessness crisis is the lack of affordable housing, there can be no question that mental health plays a significant role in people's homelessness, or more pointedly, in the difficulty in resolving their homelessness and get the care that is necessary to take care of them health. It's important to note that the data on the cross-section of homelessness and mental health is often self-reported, which means it often leads to undercounts. We do have a few sources of information that we can look to understand the reality that all of us see every single day on our streets. According to the 2022 point-in-time count from our federal government, about 23% of the 171,000 unsheltered Californians suffer from severe mental illness. 21% suffer from chronic substance use disorder. A study recently released by the University of San Francisco found that much higher levels of behavioral health issues among people experiencing homelessness, and for many, these problems predated their homelessness. More than 1/4 of the study's respondents had been hospitalized for a mental health condition, and well over half of those hospitalizations occurred before they became homeless. Nearly 2/3 of those studied reported having a period in their life in which they regularly used illicit drugs. Another 62% reported having a period of life with heavy drinking. And well over half of those regularly used illicit drugs or drank heavily never received any form of treatment. 1 in 5 people who use substances reported that they wanted substance use treatment, but they could not get it. All of these are statistics that play out in a crisis day in and day out on our streets and in our hospital emergency rooms. Our first responders spend an exceptional amount of their time working to keep people safe, but they are not equipped to handle these kinds of situations long term, nor can they address the underlying causes or help them address these mental health issues directly. In 2022, San Diego's first responders went on over 53,000 mental health crisis calls, spending over 130,000 hours of service time. These number of calls and services is the equivalent to 36 first responders spending their entire shifts every single day responding to mental health calls. This includes waiting in emergency rooms for drop-offs, going out to de-escalate crises, or other responses needed when an individual lacking access to mental health treatment goes into crisis. In many instances, people are ready to enter drug treatment or could benefit from inpatient care, but no detox beds or care is available to them. This is why I and so many other California mayors and county supervisors are strongly supporting Governor Gavin Newsom's bond measure that would add up to 10,000 mental health care beds in the state to begin making a significant difference in this crisis. The governor is asking the legislature to update the 20-year-old Mental Health Services Act to allow it to fund mental health beds and to prioritize the homeless and those addicted. This would be paired with a $4.7 billion bond measure to create these beds that would go on the March 2024 ballot. I and other officials at the local level are asking the governor and the legislature to add an additional $1.5 billion to that bond total to reserve those additional funds to be deployed by counties and cities in a manner that best suits their local circumstances. This could include deploying that funding for things like permanent supportive housing. The City of San Diego has vastly expanded our shelter and housing opportunities, and we will continue to do so. But we need help from our state and county governments to give individuals with serious mental health issues a place to go, including places like licensed care facilities, boarding cares, independent living facilities, residential drug treatment, withdrawal management beds, and other community-based facilities. Now, an increase in care facilities will be especially important if we are successful in another major initiative that we are currently pursuing, conservatorship reform. The California Big City Mayors Coalition, which I am honored to chair, is the sponsor of Senate Bill 43 by Senator Susan Eggman, and it's a change to the law that is badly needed and supported by many advocates for the mentally ill. Other sponsors include the two leading association of psychiatrists in the state of California, as well as the state chapter of NAMI, which represents families of those suffering with mental illness. Conservatorships are designed to help people who are too ill to understand how sick they are and whose illness puts them in real danger. Now, I hear all the time from families about their difficulty in getting their loved ones to meet the threshold currently in the law for conservatorships. And I've talked to dozens of people who have had to watch their loved ones deteriorate on our streets and sometimes die because they could not meet the gravely disabled standard under the current law. Senate Bill 43 would expand eligibility for conservatorships to include the inability to provide for one's own medical care and personal safety. The bill also expands conservatorships to people with a primary severe drug issue, as opposed to the current law, which is limited to solely mental health. We came so close last year to passing this piece of legislation, but this year we have made substantially further progress than last year, and I feel very good about its prospects in this current legislative session. Senate Bill 43 has cleared all of its legislative committees and is awaiting floor votes right now. I certainly encourage the California legislature to pass this legislation. I asked the governor to sign it into law, and I encourage San Diegans who are fed up with the current state of affairs when it comes to the mentally ill who are deteriorating on our streets to reach out to California legislators and let them know that you support conservatorship reform, that California wants reform now, and that we need to pass Senate Bill 43. Now, as conservatorship reform moves forward, we will also begin referring people into care court next month. Care court is for a smaller segment of the population, predominantly those with schizophrenia and similar psychotic disorders, and it is voluntary. Under Care Court, if referred clients are willing to accept services, Care Court will mandate the county to provide those services or fine them $1,000 per day per person. This underscores the need for additional beds in our system. Our first responders and our homeless services providers have been preparing for this for months and will be ready on October the 1st to start referring people into Care Court. Now, I'd like to introduce a great partner in our effort to improve access to care for San Diegans who are struggling with behavioral health and substance use disorders, Councilmember Raul Campillo. Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor Gloria, for inviting me this morning to speak at this media briefing. Hope everyone's having a great Thursday morning. And as the mayor stated, the state of California is facing a mental health and behavioral health crisis. And the issue of mental and behavioral health affects all Californians, and in fact, all San Diegans know this deeply. As we work as a city to address mental health and behavioral health, we must look at the big picture. This is not just public health. The consequences of this crisis negatively affect our workforce, our public safety, our school systems, infrastructure and community services, and the homelessness crisis altogether. And as the chair of the Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, it's incumbent on our local and regional elected leaders to prioritize mental health and behavioral health programs in partnership across all jurisdictions. We can't just solve this one city at a time. We have to tackle this as an entire region. And the city of San Diego has stepped up multiple times. Several other cities have. And we're looking forward to the county being a big partner in this to make sure it's successful. Because if we don't address it regionally, we will see it in pockets here and there, and it will continue to affect us. And most importantly, it will continue to hurt our homeless population that is suffering so badly. The city and county have the ability to mobilize local resources, coordinate interagency responses, advocate to the state and federal governments for more funding and more support. And I'll be calling a special ED and IR committee meeting at the end of this month to address our region's mental health and behavioral health bed crisis. We're going to take this head on, and I stand with Mayor Gloria. I stand with our public safety leaders. Whatever mental health resources can be acquired, our city and our region must act to force to ensure our efforts are effective. The mayor cannot do this alone. The city council cannot do this alone. And I'm here to support the mayor's efforts in ensuring our city does all it can to support our most vulnerable populations and those in our population before they become homeless, to ensure the families that are struggling to help their family members get through that crisis in their life successfully are able to do that. Just 3 nights ago on Labor Day evening, I did a nighttime ride-along with San Diego Police Department with our Western Division, and half of our night was dealing with mental health calls. I saw it firsthand, and I know that our officers, the men and women with the badge, are doing everything they can. Our fire department deals with it as well throughout the city. Our first responders do an amazing job with the leadership of our mayor, Chief Nislight, Chief Stoll. We are taking this as seriously as possible. But if we do not have the coordination with the county and other cities to make this happen, we are not going to see the results that our citizens deserve. And San Diegans expect impactful and gallant action. And this administration under Mayor Gloria and me as chair of our ED and IR committee are committed to addressing this need now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilmember. I sincerely appreciate your partnership on this issue. As I mentioned at the beginning, mental health is something that we're culturally kind of trained not to talk about. But the fact that through your committee, you've allowed us to be able to be extremely vocal in the state capitol, we're driving significant change in the passage of Care Court. The hopeful soon passage of Senate Bill 43 has put us in a leadership position, and that is a direct result of your hard work, and I appreciate you very much. Before I open it up for Q&A, and of course the council member, our police and fire chief, as well as the captain for neighborhood policing and our director of homeless services are available to answer any questions folks may have, I want to preview a couple of issues that are coming up, as I always do in the month ahead, give you all a heads up on what you might be covering in the weeks ahead. The City Council's Land Use and Housing Committee will be taking up my Housing Action Package 2.0 on September 21st. This package of reforms includes policies like making it easier to build homes on underused publicly owned lands, incentives for very low income housing for seniors and disabled people, including ADUs and single room occupancy hotels. I should say housing. Is that right, Rachel? Housing? Okay. And incentives to construct more dorm-style student housing near universities that would take some pressure off of our students and, of course, off the nearby housing stock in neighborhoods that surround local universities. Naturally, this is all with the goal in mind of building more housing across the city of San Diego that people can actually afford. If successful at committee in September, we anticipate the full City Council's consideration of this package of reforms later this fall. In addition, later this month, the City Council's Public Safety Committee will consider a contract for our Smart Streetlights program. You will recall, at the beginning of last month, the City Council approved the use of smart streetlight technology in addition to automated license plate readers. I want to express my appreciation to the City Council for that approval. And as you know, I have been supportive of returning this kind of technology to use in order to help solve crimes and keep our neighborhoods safe. Lastly, I know members of the media have reported on and have been interested in the current situation with regard to sidewalk vending. Councilmember Jennifer Campbell, in collaboration with my office, will be bringing forward changes to the sidewalk vending ordinance this fall to improve its clarity and enforceability. It's clear that some vendors have found and exploited the lack of clarity in the definition of vending and are claiming First Amendment protection for the sale of their goods. The amendments that will be brought forward will ensure that there is no ambiguity on who is subject to this regulation under the sidewalk vending ordinance and to improve our enforcement efforts. With that, I appreciate your attention to those messages and I'm happy to answer questions.
So you mentioned Care Court referrals and that the city's preparing to do referrals. Can you talk about those preparations? Does the city have folks in mind that they want to refer already? Who would be doing that?
Sure, and I certainly will defer to any of the pros who are here with me. But as you mentioned, I mean, Let me take a step back. First off, just commend the County of San Diego. As you know, and I want San Diegans to know, they have volunteered to be in the first tier of implementation. That is thanks to the leadership of County Chair Nora Vargas and our Vice Chair, Tara Lawson-Reamer. I'm grateful that we're in this leadership position. It will, of course, mean that there will be hiccups and other sorts of challenges as this gets implemented, but we're full partners in this effort, and we look forward to partnering with them to introduce this new tool into our toolbox to address these very vulnerable cases that are on our streets. I want to say, to answer your question, the city already engages with these individuals that are likely care court participants on a daily basis. So whether or not I know them by name, I don't, but I can guarantee you that Chief Nislight's officers and Chief Stoll's firefighters certainly do. We would expect that our service providers, as well as our first responders, will work with our city attorney's office to refer people that we think are eligible to the courts. And at that point, if they say yes to a care plan, then they'll become the county's responsibility to prioritize their care, find local placements, and connect them with services. As I mentioned, we will be working closely with the county on its implementation. All of us want to see care court be successful, and particularly as we worked for the implementation of conservatorship reform that is obviously connected but very different to the care court plan. And I would say, I don't know if anyone else wants to add more to that.
I think you covered it very well. Yeah.
On SB 43, and you referenced in your comments earlier, I mean, there is just a shortage of beds in general, but for substance use disorder folks, it's really hard, and essentially, there's not really on-demand care. I'm sure the officers on the street see that all the time. Are you confident that we can deliver beds so that people can be connected with treatment, and what is the city's role in making that happen?
Well, not the city, all cities. 18 cities in this county. There's hundreds across the state of California. It ain't just the city of San Diego on this. This is a statewide policy. So that's a question really for any mayor that you come across. Just a reminder. There's 17 others in the county, so give them a call. So the city of San Diego is currently working to process the construction of a new detox facility in downtown San Diego. It'll add to the minuscule number of beds that we currently have in the county, but we're trying to do our part. The city's role in that is working with partners to identify spaces, permit them for use, and then get them into use. With regard to your question about how that relates to conservatorship reform, the way I like to think of it, or I try to explain to San Diegans who have this question, is it's a lot like public education. The fact that we have a mandate that the government will provide public education to all children in the state of California means that we have a responsibility to build schools, hire teachers, purchase textbooks. I think absent this mandate to actually care for these severely mentally ill people, we'll continue to lack beds. The passage and the creation of more responsibility to care for these kinds of folks will mean that communities up and down the state are going to have to accommodate them. I applaud Governor Gavin Newsom for understanding and identifying this proactively. As I mentioned, this is not happening in isolation. The people of California will get the final word on this if they're able to vote on his tweak to the Mental Health Services Act, as well as that bond that would help not only identify and make eligible the creation of those beds, but then actually bond to create them. 10,000 mental health care beds across the state of California would be a significant down payment to addressing this. None of this is going to get fixed overnight. If Senate Bill 43 is signed into law this month or next month, if it goes into effect on January 1st, 2024, as is anticipated, it does not mean that every severely mentally ill person will come into care instantly. But what we will have is the ability to actually address those folks, God willing, with the voters' approval in March of 2024, the funding to do it, and then we'll spend the next number of years of addressing this issue with the vigor and the priority that Californians demand and expect. This is an iterative process. We are underway. I would just point out, I was a member of the California State Legislature just 3 years ago. None of this was even conceivable at that time. We have come a long way in a short amount of time, and I'm proud of the leadership role the city of San Diego has played in getting us to this point, but the job is not done. We got to pass Senate Bill 43. We have to get the bond measure passed, and then we have to start building these beds. San Diego will take its fair share of these beds. We will be a part of the solution. We need other cities to do the same thing.
There has been some tension in the past with the county over detox beds and trying to cite those, and the county's kind of set at times, and maybe that shouldn't be the top priority to get. Can you say more about where things stand with those discussions with the county now?
Sure. Well, we had Director Jarman and I were with County Chairwoman Nora Vargas yesterday, along with a handful of mayors and council members from across the county. Chair Vargas, to her enormous credit, convened many of the cities, or invited all cities. Many cities showed up yesterday to have a conversation about homelessness generally, In that meeting, I took the opportunity to raise the question of detox beds. There was general agreement amongst the group that that was something that needs additional work. I mentioned the project that we're currently working on in San Diego and encouraged my colleagues across the county to identify properties in their cities to offer up to help actually create the space for those beds. Point is that this is an active conversation, as active as less than 18 hours ago. And I think there's a general recognition this is a need. As always, is how do you do it? Where does it go? How do you fund it? Where's the staffing for it? But I just have to tell you that those are secondary questions. If we can identify that this is a problem and that it needs to be addressed, that's a heck of a lot better than where we've been in recent years where this just has not been on the radar.
I'll let others ask questions, but I definitely want more details on
Absolutely.
the detox plan.
Yeah.
Well, my question's about SeaWorld, so if you have any more questions,
Why don't you go ahead,
I
Alex?
want to take
yeah.
over everything.
That's very generous of you.
I know the city attorney is filing this lawsuit against SeaWorld for non-payment of rent, and I know you talked about this in the past, but that was rent back in 2020, so what's taking them so long? I know we sent them multiple past due invoices.
Yeah. Well, this is a subject of litigation, which we generally refer to the city attorney's office, and I certainly would encourage you to speak with the city attorney's office. Here's what I think. SeaWorld should pay its bills. I'm sure they pay their other bills. They should pay their landlord as well. And their landlord are the people of the city of San Diego. And we could use those dollars for other city priorities, things like homelessness, road repair, things that San Diegans care deeply about. And so the city attorney is in charge and will follow her lead when it comes to litigation. But the bottom line is SeaWorld needs to pay their bills, and they need to pay the city of San Diego the rent that is due, like every other Mission Bay lessee has done.
And I know like $10 to $12 million is a huge money, but not so huge for the city's budget, but has that affected the city's budget in any way?
Oh, listen, man, I don't know what they pay you at KPBS, but $12 million is a lot of money to this mayor and to this city. That's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of road repair. That's a lot of police officers. That's a lot of firefighters. That's a lot of shelter beds. It's a lot of money. Now, fairness, a lot of that money has to stay in Mission Bay Park, but you've been to Mission Bay Park. We could pave some of those parking lots. We could repair some of those lots that are there. We could returf some key areas. Mission Bay has a lot of needs. The city of San Diego has a lot of needs. Other lessees are paying their bills. I expect all lessees who benefit from the use of public land to pay for the right and the ability to do that. We have had a long and positive relationship with SeaWorld. I think that's a part to your question about why has this taken so long. I think that relationship really allows for a back and forth, but that can't continue. Folks need to pay their bills. Oh, there you go. Topic of mind, everybody. Okay. Anyone else? I don't know if we got anyone remotely. I know some folks. Do you know anyone bothering you? Okay. And forgive me. I don't know, Councilman, do you want to say anything on SeaWorld?
No, $12 million could help pay for the San Carlos Library. So there we
There you go. There you go.
Would you
Anyone
like
else?
to say more about the detox that you're looking at?
Well, it's look, I probably should just refer you to McAllister Institute, who's working on that particular thing. But you asked the question before about what's the city going to do. Well, the city has to issue permits. We have to work with them in a facilitative way to actually get that done. I want that done tomorrow, yesterday, like now. I agree with you. It's a need. And the number of beds, there'll be several dozen that are there. That will be a marked increase over the 77 that we currently have countywide. But it can't end there, right? And so the question is, where else in the county of San Diego are there facilities that can be turned into detox beds, and how quickly can we do that? McAllister does an exceptional job. I'm very, very impressed with the work that they do. They could use some support, and I think, you have some readers. I think that they should know more about McAllister and the great work that they do. I appreciate their willingness to partner with us and to provide that service in the city of San Diego. I encourage other cities to find ways to try and do that. There are people suffering with substance use disorder in all 18 cities of the county. We should have beds in all 18 cities.
I'll ask something that I was talking to some folks about before that I think some of the cameras might be interested in as well. Can you provide an update on where things stand with Lot O or other new homelessness serving facilities?
Yeah. Well, actually, Sarah, do you want to talk to that? People don't need to hear me talk so long here. And well, I'll follow up when you're done.
You sure?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. I just,
Thank you for the. Sarah Jarman, Director of Homelessness Strategies and Solutions. Regarding Lot O, we've done significant improvements. City staff has really dedicated their time and efforts in order to stay on track for an opening this fall. As a reminder, Lot O is slated to have approximately 400 different tents. That will, of course, serve more than 400 individuals if people are doubling up in tents. Some of the updates for OLOT include we have installed all of the fencing, we've done all of the utility stub outs, the fire hydrants are in, the road work is done. We also have a significant number of deliveries that have come on site, including Connex boxes, 3 out of the 4 office trailers that we intend to use. In addition to that, a very, very warm shout out to Department of General Services, who is actually developing the platforms to go underneath the tents. Those platforms are very much so underway. I believe all of Tier 1 is complete, if not work has been done on the 2nd tier and 3rd tier. But there's been a significant number of improvements to Lot O, and we're very excited about that.
But there's no specific date. I know you have an RFP too.
The RFP closes September 11th, so we will know more a little bit after that, but definitely still on track for opening of this fall.
Any other facilities that should be on folks' radar? I know you're working on a lot.
We are working on a lot. That's our big one for the next couple of months.
What I simply was going to add was that Sarah has done an exceptional job juggling the multiple demands. I mean, you think about a month ago, we were here talking about 20th and B. That facility has only grown in the last month, serving more people. Simultaneously, Sarah and her team have found additional space in some of our existing shelters to yield several dozen additional beds there. Those are beds that are full now. We are currently working on a domestic violence shelter that we hope to open very soon. And we continue to look for more opportunities. OLOT is obvious. Some additional preliminary work is happening at H Barracks in Liberty Station. So there's an all-hands-on-deck approach to this issue, and I'm hopeful that the media will help us in finding, encouraging people to apply for that RFP so that we have quality providers on site for OLOT and make sure that when that is physically able to be open, and agree, the General Services team has done an exceptional job of getting that space ready. I'm sure some of you drive on the 5, you can see for yourself the progress that's being made. We want to make sure that as soon as it's available to be used, that we have a provider there on site that can help us actually invite folks in, get them off the streets, get them into care, and then get them on their way to ending their homelessness.
I'll have questions. Now, housing is a big part of the homelessness crisis here in San Diego, and we know that short-term rental is kind of adding to that problem. A couple of months ago, there was a story about how this one mega landlord is using a loophole with short-term rentals to basically license a whole swath of his property that was previously apartments. And forgive me, but I haven't been following this closely, but what has the city been doing to kind of prevent that loophole in near future?
It's kind of like street vending, right? You know, people often try and find a way around the rules, right? And just a little history, reminder that vacation rentals had operated unregulated for years and years in the city. And I think generally the city turned a blind eye. This administration has not done that. This city council has not done that. We did the hard work of actually passing regulations on vacation rentals and home sharing in order to reduce the number that are in the community, return those units hopefully back to the rental or for sale market so that everyday San Diegans can benefit from them, and that those who are choosing to operate in our city do so with clear rules of the road and the opportunity to make sure that they can do what they want to do in terms of renting out their homes on an infrequent basis, but not impact neighborhood quality of life. All credit due to Councilmember Jennifer Campbell, who did the hard work of bringing very diverse stakeholders together to pass that legislation where others made attempts and failed. She succeeded. We now have those rules on the books. They're relatively still new, like with anything. Again, our ability to figure out how to implement that and if it's working the way we want to, is something that we continue to work on. To your point of the reporting around that one individual, I mean, it's a classic case, much like against street vending. Oh, here's a workaround. Well, we're aware of them. Our city's treasurer office is working to gain compliance, and what we've seen is we start contacting individuals who may not actually understand that they're the permit holder for a particular unit that they don't directly own. What we're finding is some of them are turning those permits back. So this is unfortunately to be expected. It's kind of human nature. There's rules, and most people will follow them, but some will try and evade them. The point is that's why we have oversight. That's why we have accountability. That's why we have consequences. And the city is currently in the position now of following up and enforcing those consequences. I believe that we will get compliance. Anyone else? We good? I know Chief Nislight and I have the sad, solemn responsibility to go to a canine funeral for one of our police dogs, sir, that you all know was murdered a few weeks ago. So I appreciate you being here, though, to give us the chance to share this information with you. Any follow-ups, please contact Rachel Lang from my team. And again, to Chief Stoll, to Chief Nislight, Captain Takeuchi, who's working very hard. Sarah Jarman, of course, to our council member, appreciate their partnership today. And I really appreciate the media being here. We don't talk about mental health enough, and that's evident by the situation that is on our streets. I encourage people to actively take care of themselves, the mental health of themselves and their family members and their loved ones. And I ask our partners in government, particularly those in the state legislature who have the ability to change the law dramatically, to actually tilt it in the direction of those who most need care, to do so and give us the opportunity to care for these folks. Right now, we are choosing to ignore them on our streets. That cannot continue. The status quo cannot continue. We need to change that. Senate Bill 43 has that opportunity to do so. The governor's bond proposal has the opportunity to make that change. The implementation of Care Court next month is also a major opportunity. There's a lot going on in this space. Let's continue this momentum. Let's get these folks into care. Let's get them off of our sidewalks. Thank you, everybody.